Hey folks, Professor Finn here, and today we're going to be looking at Chapter 14 in Dr. Ralph Klicker's Funeral Service Psychology and Counseling textbook. Let's go ahead and get the presentation on screen and talk about intervention strategies. So some general suggestions to being an effective grief counselor. 1, you cannot take away the pain of the bereaved. And do not let your own sense of helplessness keep you from reaching out to the griever. So it is important to understand that we as human beings typically do not like watching other human beings suffer. And that can be overwhelming for us, especially in mass casualty events or natural disasters. Do not let your own sense of helplessness, thinking it doesn't help, reach out anyways. Expect to have to tolerate volatile reactions from the bereaved. We've seen that one of the common reactions to grief is anger. Well, sometimes you have to tolerate some of that anger. Good friend of mine from high school, his name is Joel. He tells a story. Because one of his catchphrases is be grateful. That he's waiting in line at a big box retail store. The line is huge, right? And the cashier is talking on the phone while she's checking people out. And of course, this is making the line go slower. So get closer to the front. Finally, you're in line, and she says, "Love you, Dad. Have a good day. Talk to you later. Bye," and hangs up just as he's getting in front and really about to voice his displeasure. And that's when the cashier looks at him and says, "Hey, I appreciate your and everyone else's patience. Today, my dad remembered me. He has Alzheimer's. And he called me and wanted to talk." Well, expect to tolerate volatile reactions from the bereaved. And sometimes, in perspective, you'll understand that, hey, I got nothing to be angry about. Today was actually a good day. And if they're being angry, if they are expressing emotions, that is healthy for them. I'm not saying that it's good for you to have to encounter the anger. What I'm saying is if they are getting it out of their system, it might be a good thing. Okay, it might be a good thing. Recognize the critical therapeutic value of the gift of presence. There's this really cool meme that filters around on social media. And usually it's text-based. Sometimes there's a picture. And it says, Winnie the Pooh and Piglet hadn't heard from Eeyore in some time, so they decided to pay their friend a visit. And they walk up, and Eeyore is in his little hovel. And they say, "Eeyore, we haven't seen you. Are you doing okay?" And he's like, not really. And instead of trying to push Eeyore to go do something, they said, "Well, we'll just sit a bit with you." And they sit down, and they don't talk, and they don't bring anything up. They just sit there. And it closes with, "And Eeyore felt a little bit better." Recognize the critical therapeutic value of the gift of presence. Make sure you view the loss from the griever's unique perspective. Again, don't look at it at the lens from your experience. Try to see it from the lens where they're at. Let your genuine concern and caring show, and do not let your own needs determine the experience for the griever. Just because you went through an experience, you had certain needs during that time, doesn't mean they're going to have the same thing. Understand that grief is not an easy upward climb, and have no expectations that bereaved individuals will behave the way you want them to. Grief makes you do strange things. Listen to the story of their loved one over and over. I have some friends who tell the same stories regarding a loss. Time and time again, almost every time we meet, every conversation we have, it comes up. And every single time, I listen to it like it's the first time I've heard it. Understand that some grievers need to visit the cemetery. It's not a sad place for them. It's where they feel connected. And refer to the deceased by name. We are changing the relationship when a person dies from a physical to a spiritual one. That does not mean that we are depersonalizing them or loving them any less. My dad is still my dad. And even though I can't go visit to him or bring him a piece of chocolate cake or his favorite Italian sub, my dad is still my dad. Grief can be a long, lonely journey. So be patient. Grief can take a tremendous amount of energy, and most grievers are exhausted. Remember, when we are going through a grief event, we are having both physical symptoms and we're having somatic symptoms. We're having these effects. That is extremely taxing. Offer permission to grieve. Some people need to know it's okay. Some of you may have seen the movie The Shawshank Redemption. And this is based off of a short novel, a story by Stephen King. And towards the end of the book, spoiler alert, a formerly incarcerated individual is working at a grocery store. And they ask for permission to go to the bathroom. And the manager says, "You don't have to ask me, just go." And the problem is, over years of incarceration and conditioning, if he doesn't ask permission, he can't go to the bathroom. He can't just go. He has to be given permission. Avoid using the term depressed. They're not depressed. They're grieving. There is a difference between depression and grief. There's a lot of things that they share, absolutely, and it is very easy for grief to lead into depression. But they are two different things. Do not explain the loss in religious or philosophical terms. Not everyone is going to understand the references you are using, and not everyone will appreciate the references you are using. That is especially true if they are questioning their religious beliefs because of the death. Do not tell them to feel better because there are other loved ones who are still alive. That's just absolutely horrific. They need to grieve. They need to feel bad. Someone has died. Just because there are other people who still are alive and need them does not mean that they need to feel better for them. They need to process their grief. And do not try to unrealistically pretty up the situation. Don't forget to plant seeds of hope. I was talking with a fine gentleman who mentors me in my new role at work. And I said, I can't see the tunnel. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But what I can tell you right now is where I am on the tracks, I know the tunnel is coming up. And I know when I get to the tunnel, I will see the light at the end of the tunnel. Do not encourage responses that do not foster appropriate grief. Oh, it's okay to just go there and hit another couple of shots. It's not okay for someone to revert to self-medication using alcohol. Do not encourage responses that do not foster appropriate grief. They need to focus on their grief. They need to find a better coping mechanism. Do not tell them not to cry. If anything, you should encourage them to cry more often. We've seen the different type of tears. And when you cry emotional tears, tears of grief, you are literally flushing away some of the bad things that are inside of you. Hold out the expectation that the griever will successfully complete the mourning process and the pain will subside. People function better when they are among like-minded individuals. And if everyone around them is holding to the belief that they will complete the process and get better, that will have a dramatic impact on them. So when should you be concerned? When they lack basic self-care. You notice extreme changes in their personal hygiene. Unusual and alarming behavior patterns, especially when you see them self-medicating. when they do self-harm threats or attempts, when they're suffering multiple losses, either in succession or all at once. I read an article the other day where a family of 7 all died in a car accident. The parents and all their children. Prior to that, one of the children was in rough shape in the ICU. But could you imagine trying to process the fact that all of your siblings and your parents are dead? Could you imagine if one of the parents survived and all of their children and their spouse died? Severe withdrawal and or depression, substance abuse, radical lifestyle changes. So what are some things that you can give to people going through grief? Tell them to get enough sleep or as much rest as possible. It's hard to sleep, which means they might have to change their sleeping patterns. Instead of going to bed at 11 and waking up at 5, maybe you need to go to bed at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. Those extra hours might help. Regular exercise can help relieve stress and improve mood. Doesn't take much. There are these little 10-minute workouts that are not very high impact. You do arm rotations, you do some sidestepping or step jacks. 10 minutes. That's all it takes. That can help. Eat a healthy, balanced diet. Drink plenty of water. As generally speaking, Americans are usually very underhydrated. Drink plenty of water. Eat fulfilling meals. And do not use alcohol to mask the pain. Take medication only when prescribed by a physician and maintain as normal a routine as possible. We like routines. We like checklists. Normalcy is comforting. Write important things down. Keep lists. These days, it is almost inexcusable not to write things down or make notes of something. Every digital device has a note-taking function. Most digital devices allow you to take voice notes. Do not compare your grief to others. You are where you need to be. They are where they need to be. And this is not a comparison. This is not a race. Find someone who is a good listener to share your feelings with. There may be times when you feel like you're losing control or panicking. Try an activity that relaxes you. Remember, it takes effort to begin to live again. Sometimes your funeral director is the good listener. The funeral director is a good listener. Postpone major life decisions. You need to give yourself time to adjust. Jumping into 2 different things at once might be pretty bad. Take part in an activity with others. It can help with loneliness. That doesn't mean you have to have one-on-one interaction. You're just somewhere with people doing something. Take 1 day at a time, even 1 hour at a time. Small steps. Small steps and consistent steps. Don't push yourself, and don't let others rush you. Cry, cry, cry. Tears are healthy. And know that there will be good days and there will be bad days. That's simply the way it is. And if you're having a good day, that's wonderful. If you're having a bad day, you know that a good day inevitably is going to come up. Death leaves emotional scars. Joy will return, but maybe in different ways than you expect or experienced in the past. Writing down your thoughts and feelings in a journal may help. And I have found, just through my experience as a licensed professional, writing things down, suggesting to my clients, write things down, helps them immensely because it gets it out of them and into something else. It is the act of taking it and putting it somewhere else that assists them. Writing a letter to the deceased can be helpful. Bury it in the grave, cremate it, float it in a lake or stream. Sometimes you may want to scream, go for a ride, scream into a pillow. You may feel or see the deceased. This may be upsetting, but it's also normal. Our mind does these things. You may feel the deceased is near or touching you. Again, this is also normal. And you will absolutely feel a multitude of emotions. Your friends may change. Old ones may leave or new ones will enter your life. That's simply life. I'm grateful for getting older. I can tell you I'm absolutely grateful for getting older. In high school, I did not have a lot of friends. I had my little clique of people I hung out with, and that was it. Here I am, 40 years later, whatever. And now I have something called social media. And I find these people I went to school with, people I don't really know from high school, have had no interaction with their lives. And some of them have become good friends. My friend Joel, for instance, who gave me the story of Be Grateful. I have others that I interact with that I have not seen since graduation 1993. However, some of them have reached out and said, hey, I've had a death. Hey, I've got questions. And I'm able to support them and engage them and give them what they need. And for me, that is the nature of my personality. I like being helpful to people. And so as I lose some friends, I gained others. And I gained them in different sensibilities. Some are strictly digital. But I'm having a conversation with someone that I met decades ago, and I'm able to help them. And that makes me feel good. And surround yourself with supportive, caring people. No matter where you are in life, no matter what you are doing, surround yourself with people that will support you, support your business, and support your endeavors. Accept comfort from others who will offer it. If your friends won't, you may find new people to give you that. Forgive others, and especially forgive yourself if necessary. Avoid the shoulds. I should feel better. I should not feel this way. You do feel that way, and the way you feel is natural. So grieve, because that is the way that unpleasant feeling is going to go the way. By denying it, you're just going to propagate it. That's that, folks. Concludes this lecture. I will see you next video.